lecture, let me make you literate of Angular. First, let's understand what is Angular. Angular is one of the mostly demanded front-end frameworks today. It has a huge scalability and flexibility. It can be used in other frameworks such as Ionic to make native mobile applications. You can make offline applications by using progressive web applications concept. Exactly, Angular is a front-end framework to create highly responsive, user-friendly, scalable, and stateful web applications. Earlier, we were having AngularJS, which was the huge successful framework in the period of 2010 and 2016. Now, Angular, also known as Angular 2, is the complete rewrite of AngularJS from the same Google who developed AngularJS also. Angular provides a command line tool called CLI, which stands for Command Line Interface, which is used to create several items such as components, services, pipes, modules, and classes, etc. in the easy way. That means simply it generates the basic syntax, which can be customized by the developer by adding the custom logic. What are the features of Angular? Application state is stored in the component. Every application contains application state. That is the data presented to the user or data entered by the user. For example, there is a grid application, so the collection of records is the state. And also the user can add records, edit the records. This data is also called a state. So any information that we are taking from the user or presenting to the user is called a state of the application. This state is stored in the form of properties or arrays as a part of components. Component is a class that contains programmatic reflection of the user interface. We will understand about the components in the further lessons of the course. Second one, design logic is written in the template. Design logic is the HTML logic to describe the view to present data to the user. Third one, application logic is written in the component. Application logic is the programming logic which supplies the essential data to the design logic and also respond to the user events such as click, double click, etc. In Angular, application logic is written in the components. So the component is a class that contains application state and application logic. Fourth one, business logic is written in the service. Business logic is the programming logic which is involved in fetching the data from the data sources and also performing validations or calculations, etc. In Angular, we require to write the business logic in the service. The components can invoke the service. What are the goals and advantages of Angular? First one is separation of DOM manipulation logic from application logic. DOM stands for Document Object Model. It is the tree structure of HTML elements created in the page. In typical applications developed using plain JavaScript or jQuery, you need to write the manual code to update the HTML elements in the page, such as adding, removing rows in the grid, making calculations, and updating the text box values based on the user-entered values, etc. In Angular, the DOM manipulation logic is completely eliminated. That means mostly the developer need not write any code for manipulation of HTML elements at runtime. Alternatively, the Angular framework itself do the same. For example, there is an array behind the grid. If you add any elements in the array, the same rows will be automatically added in the grid. If you remove the elements in the array, the same rows will be automatically removed in the grid. If you update any values in the array elements, the same rows will be automatically updated in the grid. Similarly, behind every text box or checkbox, you will have a property. If you update the value of the property, the same will be automatically reflected in the text box. So the developer never writes any code for updating the DOM elements directly. but the Angular contains built-in functionality of detecting the changes made to the arrays or properties and also reflect the same in the respective HTML elements in the DOM. So the same will be reflected in the actual page output. Second one, separation of HTML logic from application logic. Here, HTML logic is the actual HTML code to design user interface. In typical applications developed using plain JavaScript or jQuery, the developer writes some of the pieces of HTML code as a part of JavaScript or jQuery code. For example, you will use jQuery append or prepend functions to add additional HTML code dynamically. In that way, your code will be a mix of both programming logic and design logic. It is not a good pattern because it will be very difficult to identify what elements will be present on the screen at different states of the page, and also the programming logic cannot be unit testable. To overcome this problem, Angular designed in such a way that is the application logic, that is programming logic, is separated from HTML logic. Practically, you will create HTML logic in the template. Application logic is written in the components. The application logic is the programming logic to supply the data to the design logic and also contain the event handlers to respond to the user events. Third one, separation of business logic from application logic. Business logic is the code used to fetch the data from data sources by making AJAX calls and also the code for custom validations. The business logic should be independent of the user interface. That means even without design logic is completed, the business logic should be independently developed and tested. Because the business logic should be reusable, parallelly developed aside of the design logic, and may be developed by different teams in different workplaces. In Angular, services contain the business logic. Service is a class that contains business logic code. Service interacts with the server by making AJAX requests to the API server and also receive and process or validate the data returned from the server, and finally provide the processed or validated data back to the component. Fourth one, make the code maintainable. In Angular, we use modules concept in order to group up the components belongs to different modules and submodules of the project. In Angular, module is a collection of components. For example, in ERP solution, we have different modules such as finance, front office, housekeeping, CRM, etc. We can also share the components among multiple modules. Fifth one, make the single-page application development easier. Single-page application is an application where navigation links never refresh the entire page. Based on the links clicked by the user, just the main content area needs to be changed in the existing page so that once the page is loaded in the browser, it quickly changes from one screen to another screen as per the user's request. Angular provides a beautiful concept called routing, which allows you to do the same and also update the URL for adding the necessary items to the browser history so that the user can copy-paste the URLs from one browser to another browser window and get exact same screen what he is watching currently. For example, the user is watching dashboard screen currently, so the URL is www.sample.com/dashboard. If the user copy-pastes the same URL in another browser tab, he will get exact dashboard directly. Make the code unit testable. Unit testing is the concept of testing the individual component or service without integration of complete application. We will pass the necessary inputs to the components or service programmatically and examine its results whether it returns the expected results or not. Let us understand the overview of code compilation process in Angular. The application source code, that is, the components and services, etc., are written in the TypeScript language. TypeScript is one of the recently released language, which is a superset of JavaScript, which adds data types, optional type safety, classes, and interfaces to JavaScript. The code written in TypeScript is well structured and maintainable even in large scale applications. But the problem is, the TypeScript code cannot be executed directly by the browser, because the browsers are designed to understand JavaScript only. To overcome this problem, TypeScript code must be compiled, that means converted into JavaScript code, by using a compiler called TSC, which stands for TypeScript Compiler. The next one is template. The developer writes the design logic, that is HTML logic, in the template. Instead of executing the HTML logic directly in the browser, the Angular compiler first converts the HTML logic into JavaScript code. And then the browser executes the JavaScript code to generate DOM elements. Thus, the output appears in the browser. The benefit of converting the HTML code into JavaScript code is the DOM elements can be dynamically manipulated by the script based on the changes to the application data. For example, when the price of the product is changed in the program, the same value will be automatically reflected in the corresponding text box at runtime. Let's understand do's and don'ts of Angular. These are the important guidelines that should be followed by Angular developers while developing real-time applications. Don'ts of Angular. First one is, never write the code for DOM manipulations in Angular, because Angular is designed to do the same automatically based on the changes to the application data. For example, if you update the value of product price variable, the same will be automatically updated in the corresponding text box or label in the page. Thus, you are making the application logic only to manipulate data, but not manipulate DOM directly. So it is unit testable at any time. Second one, never write JavaScript code in Angular templates. The Angular templates, that is HTML code, will be converted into equivalent JavaScript code, which provides the DOM at runtime. So if you place JavaScript code in Angular template, it will not be compiled properly by the Angular compiler. Third one, never write business logic in components. Components are designed to store the application data in the form of properties and arrays, and also supply necessary event handlers to the templates. Components are never intended to hold business logic. The business logic should be written in the services and be invoked in the components. Thus, the business logic contained services become independent of user interface and be reusable across the application. Fourth one, avoid using jQuery to manipulate DOM elements. In Angular, you should not use jQuery to perform DOM manipulations to make regular updates in the DOM, such as getting or setting the text box values. But however, you can make use of limited jQuery code in Angular components for some special plugins such as drag and drop, modal pop-ups, etc. Do's of Angular. First one, always use routing and modules. Angular routing allows you to create navigation among pages in Angular application such as home page, dashboard page, and other pages. It is recommended to use routing always and create a parent route with some child routes for every Angular module. For example, for the finance module, you require to create a finance parent route. Next one, prefer to create guards and apply them to the necessary routes for preventing unauthorized access of the pages. For example, the user should be able to access the dashboard page only after login. Next one, always manipulate application data by writing code in the components. The same will be reflected in the DOM through the data bindings. Next one, always place global CSS styles in the styles.css file and the local CSS styles that are related to specific component in the component.css file of the particular component. Always make AJAX calls to REST API services in Angular services only because it is a part of business logic. And also return observables from Angular service methods. Prefer using Bootstrap or its equivalent CSS framework such as MD Bootstrap, etc. Use the CSS preprocessor such as SCSS or SAS because it allows you to do a lot of things such as arithmetical operations, variables, if conditions, etc. in CSS to make your user interface highly responsive. Let's understand Angular architecture. Angular architecture explains how the building blocks are used in practical working of Angular applications. First, there will be a component that contains application data and application logic in the form of event handler methods, which responds to the user actions. Every component has a template. The template contains HTML logic, that is design logic to describe the views. The component and the template exchange information as long as the application executes by using data binding relationship. For example, there is a property called person name in the component and there is a text box in the template which has data binding with the person name property of the component. When the user enters a value in the text box, the same will be automatically updated in the person name property of the component. The metadata is additional details about the specific class. Here components, directives, modules and services are the classes. That means all of these components, directives, modules and services contain its own metadata. Modules are mainly used to group up the related components. In general, every project module is created as a module. Service is a TypeScript class which contains client-side business logic, which is involved in loading the data from servers by making AJAX calls to the REST API servers, and also process the received data by performing custom and complex validations and calculations, and also adding additional essential data to the data structures. Dependency injection is a concept of creating service objects at runtime automatically and loading those service objects into the constructor of the components as per the necessity of the component. In general, directives are mainly used to create custom gadgets such as draggable, model pop-up, collapsible, accordion, etc. Angular comes with some built-in packages. Each feature in Angular is represented in the form of packages. All these packages are shipped through NPM, that is NodeJS Package Manager. In this lecture, I am going to explain the briefing of all the Angular packages to have quick awareness. The first one is @Angular/core package. This package is needed in every Angular application, which provides essential predefined decorators, classes, interfaces, modules that are needed to run in every Angular application. In the actual source code of the application, we require to import the decorators such as @component, @ngModule, etc. and also the interfaces such as onChanges, onInit, etc. from Angular/core package only. The second one is @Angular/common package. This package provides the built-in directives that are useful in most of the Angular applications. For example, the ngIf directive is used to display some content in the template, only when the condition is true. The ng class directive is used to apply some CSS class to the HTML element only when the condition is true. The ng for directive is used to repeat some content in the template for each element in the array. The third one is @angular/compiler. It compiles the template into equivalent JavaScript code, which produces DOM dynamically at runtime in the browser. But the Angular developer never invokes this package directly. Always it is invoked by Angular CLI package or by Platform Browser Dynamic package. The fourth one is @angular/platform browser dynamic. It invokes the Angular compiler for performing JIT compilation and also specifies the startup module, which module component should be executed first in the component hierarchy. JIT stands for just-in-time compilation, which means that the templates are compiled into JavaScript code within the browser itself at runtime. The fifth one is @angular/platform browser. This package provides a set of predefined classes that are needed to perform DOM manipulations in the browser, that is to render the UI in the browser and also to manipulate the user interface based on the user actions. The sixth one is @angular/forms. This package provides a set of predefined classes for creating and executing Angular forms. The seventh one is @angular/router. This package provides a set of predefined classes that are needed to create and execute the routing, that is page navigation. Using this package, you also create child routes and also receive the route parameters. The eighth one is @angular/animations. This package provides necessary predefined classes that are needed to create and execute Angular animations, which is mainly used to project page transitions while navigating among the routes in Angular. The ninth package is @angular/CLI. This package needs to be installed only on the developer machine, which is used to create new Angular applications and also add the several items such as components, directives, pipes, modules, etc. to the existing Angular applications and also compile and build Angular applications. For example, the commands like ng-new, ng-serve, ng-build, etc. commands execute based on Angular CLI package only. The 10th package is RxJS. This package provides a set of predefined classes for creating observables. The observable data represents the response received from REST API calls. For example, if you receive a set of employees from the database server, it is represented as observable of employee class. The 11th package is Zone.js. This package provides a set of predefined classes for executing the change detection process while executing the Angular application. The change detection process just examines the changes of the application data and the user interface. If any data is updated in any of them, the opposite one will be automatically updated. Thus, the data bindings are implemented in Angular. This is the briefing of all the important packages in Angular. Let's understand the folder structure of Angular application briefly. The E2E folder contains the end-to-end test cases to test the complete functionality of the application. The src folder contains the actual source code of the application. The app folder contains the definitions of all the components, modules, and services. The app.component.scss file contains the CSS styles of app component. The app component is a startup component of Angular application. The app.component.html file contains the template of app component, which will be displayed to the user automatically at startup. The app.component.spec.ts file contains the unit test cases of app component to perform unit testing using Jasmine. The app.component.ts file contains the actual component class of app component. The app.module.ts file contains actual module class of app module. App module is a startup module in Angular application. The app routing module.ts file contains Angular routing configuration. You can create or modify the routes using this file. The assets folder contains static files such as images, PDF files, etc. The fav icon.ico file is the icon that appears in the browser location bar. The index.html file is a startup file which will be loaded into the browser when the application runs. The main.ts file defines the startup logic for the Angular application, which gets executes at application startup. The polyfills.ts file defines the set of third-party libraries, such as zone.js, which are needed to be loaded into the browser at application startup that are needed to run the Angular application. The styles.scss file or styles.css file is the global CSS file, which contains the CSS file that belongs to the entire application. The angular.json file contains the Angular CLI configuration using which you can load custom CSS files or JS files such as Bootstrap, jQuery, Fonthausen, etc. The package.json file contains the list of npm packages that are needed to be installed. The tsconfig.json file contains TypeScript compiler configuration settings, based on which the TypeScript source code files will be compiled in the application. This is the briefing about files and folders of Angular application. Let us see how to create first application in Angular. We are going to use Bootstrap from the first day of application because in real time it is must to use Bootstrap or any other equivalent CSS framework. Steps to create first application in Angular. At first, you require to install Node.js. Node.js allows you to use npm on your machine, using which all the Angular packages are shipped. In other words, using npm only, we are downloading all Angular packages. Next, you require to install Visual Studio Code, which is the code editor which is used to edit the source code of Angular application. We have other choices such as Sublime Text, Atom, WebStorm, etc. But I chose Visual Studio Code as it is one of the most popular, free, open source, highly customizable and easy to use. Next, you require to install Angular CLI, which is a npm package basically, which provides a set of commands to create Angular application and also add items to the existing application. To create actual Angular application, you require to run the command ng-new at the command prompt window. Then it automatically creates the essential folder structure of Angular application. Then you require to edit the source code such as components, templates, and also run the application by using ngserve command. Let me show the same process practically. Open nodejs.org website and download the current version of Node.js. As of this video time, it is 11.10.0. So click on current and run the file. Now Node.js setup wizard has been started. Click on next button. Check the checkbox I accept the terms in the license agreement and click on next. The default path is C:\program files Node.js. Click on next. Keep the default options as it is and click on Next. Uncheck the checkbox Automatically install the necessary tools. Click on Next and also click on Install. Node.js installation is completed. Click on Finish. Now open the command prompt. By default, your command prompt is located in C:\users your name. Now you require to install Angular CLI on your machine by using npm. So the command is npm space install space @angular/CLI space -g. This command will automatically download and install Angular CLI on your machine. -g indicates globally, that means from any folder of your machine, you will be able to use Angular CLI, not only from the C drive. It will take around 2 minutes of time to install Angular CLI. Now Angular CLI installation has been completed. I want to place all the tutorial applications in the folder called C:\Angular. So we require to create such a folder. In order to create a folder, MD stands for make directory, which means that you are going to create a new folder. In C drive, I am going to create a folder called Angular. At your practice time, you can take any other folder name as per your wish. Now in C drive, Angular folder has been created. In order to open the same, CD, which stands for change directory, space C:\Angular. Now we are in the C:\Angular folder. In this folder, you want to create a new Angular application. So the command is ng-new. You require to specify the application name. For example, our application name is Task Manager. You can give any other application name as per your requirement. Now you require to specify the style options. Either you want to use a plain CSS or SCSS or SAS or less. You require to add 2 hyphens, style equal to. You have options like CSS, less, SAS, etc. In our tutorial, we are going to use SCSS. In case if you don't know SCSS, SCSS is a superset of CSS, which contains all the features of CSS, but adds additional features such as variables, if conditions, operators, etc. to the plain CSS, using which you can make your application more responsive to the user. And in order to add the routing for our application, you require to give ---- routing. Again space. When the application is created, automatically it will try to install the necessary npm packages. In order to skip that installation, you require to add an option skip install. Because the default npm install command of Angular CLI has some bugs, so often it will make some issues. To avoid such problems, I am going to skip the npm install command at the time of using ng-new. So the final command that you have to use is ng-new space application name ---- style equal to SCSS ---- routing skip install. You can open the folder that is C:\Angular. It has a folder called Task Manager and it has a folder structure that is src with app folder and other related files. I will explain about the Angular folder structure in the other video. So if you want to quickly know about the Angular files and folders, please check out that video. Now let me enter into the folder called Task Manager. So cd Task Manager. Now in this particular folder, you require to give npm install command. This command will install essential packages that are required to run Angular application. The list of packages that are required is already specified in the package.json file. Internally, it will read the list of dependencies in the package.json file and install those packages automatically. It will take around 2 minutes of time to install these packages. Now necessary npm packages installation is completed. Now you require to install the code editor, that is Visual Studio Code. So go to code.visualstudio.com and click on the button Download for Windows. Download the file called vscodesetup.exe file and run the file. Now the Visual Studio Code setup has been started. Click on Next. Select the radio button I accept the agreement. Click on Next. Keep the default path as it is. Click on Next. Click on Next again. Click on Next. And click on Install. It takes around 1 minute of time to install Visual Studio Code. Now the Visual Studio Code installation is completed. Click on Finish. Now open Visual Studio Code. Go to File menu, Open folder and select the path C:\Angular Task Manager. Now in the Explorer window, it will show the folder structure of Task Manager folder. Open src folder, app folder. There you will find two files, that is app.component.ts and also app.component.html. In the app.component.html, you can write any of your content, whatever you wish. So I have deleted the default content and added the new content, that is Welcome to Angular. Save the file. Come back to the command prompt window. Make sure you are in the C:\Angular Task Manager folder. There you have to give the command ngserve --open. This command will automatically compile and start executing the Angular application. The default port number of Angular is 4200. In case if you want to change the port number, you can specify the port number explicitly, for example --port equal to 5200. You can give any other port number as per your requirement. Internally, it uses NodeJS to run the application. It is compiling the application now and automatically open the default browser and run the URL localhost 5200. You can also manually type this location, that is http localhost 5200. In this case, 5200 is the port number that we have mentioned in the command prompt window. If you don't specify the port number, the default port number is 4200. At that time, the URL will be http localhost 4200. Anyways, we got the given content as output. In case if you modify the content, for example, I just added hello. Once you save the file, immediately the file will be recompiled and also the page will be refreshed in the browser. This is how to create first application in Angular. In the further lessons, we are going to learn how to add the Bootstrap to the Angular application. In most of the real-time applications, you require to use Bootstrap or its equivalent CSS framework to make your user interface looks professional without writing much of CSS code. Bootstrap makes it easy to create stunning user interfaces by providing ready-made CSS classes. However, occasionally you may need to add a little bit of CSS code to customize it. Our course doesn't cover the Bootstrap, but it demonstrates the usage of Bootstrap practically in most of the lectures. In case if you want to learn Bootstrap, you can check out my other course called Bootstrap Real-Time Project to understand the Bootstrap essential concepts. First, you require to install a package called jQuery because Bootstrap works based on jQuery. To do so, use the command npm install jQuery save. The --save option saves the package name in the dependencies section of the package.json automatically. Next, you require to install a package called popper.js because Bootstrap works based on popper.js for some of its features. Next, you require to install actual package called Bootstrap, which loads the CSS file and JavaScript file of Bootstrap. Let me show the same practically. This is the existing application what we have created in the previous lecture. Now I would like to add Bootstrap in this application. So take another instance of command prompt window, enter the command cd:\Angular Task Manager, Now you are in the application folder where your package.json file exists. There you require to give the command npm install jQuery -- save. Next you require to install another package called popper.js. So the command is npm install popper.js -- save. Next you require to install the actual package called Bootstrap. So the command is npm install bootstrap -- save. Also in our further lectures, I would like to use Font Awesome, which provides a large set of icons. So npm install font -awesome -- save. Now come back to Visual Studio Code. Open angular.json file. While executing the Angular application, Angular CLI automatically reads the angular.json. So you can add any settings of the Angular application in the angular.json file. Here we have two properties, that is styles and scripts. In the styles property, we can specify the CSS files that are to be loaded while executing the Angular application. And also you can add essential JavaScript files in the script section, which are to be loaded into the browser while executing the Angular application. By default, every Angular application contains a global CSS file, that is styles.css or styles.scss, which depends on the style option while creating the Angular application. The default is CSS. But while creating our application, we have chosen SCSS. So the file name will be styles.scss. This file contains the global CSS code that is common and accessible for all the components of the entire application. If you open the styles.css file, by default it has nothing but a comment. In future, you can add any CSS styles in the styles.scss file. Apart from this, I would like to add some files, that is node_modules bootstrap.css and also font awesome.css and also jQuery.js and also popper.js and also bootstrap.js. Now we have loaded essential CSS files and JavaScript files which are required to execute Bootstrap. But you can notice the output is not refreshed, because the ngserve command will not recognize the changes made to the angular.json file. So we require to stop the ngserve command by pressing Ctrl+C twice. You require to give the same command ngserve -open, which will compile the program and also make it executed automatically in the browser. Alternatively, you can also just give ngserve command, but in that case you require to open the browser manually, and manually you require to type the command localhost 4200. Now you can notice the output has been changed because of Bootstrap CSS styles. In the app.component.html file, it is not recommended to place the complete HTML syntax such as HTML, head, body tags, because the same were written already in the index.html file. At runtime, the content of app.component.html will be integrated in place of AppRoot tag. In the further lecture called Component, I am going to explain how the AppRoot tag works, how the app component content will be loaded in place of AppRoot. So try to follow the same. So in this lecture successfully we have added the Bootstrap to our application. Let me show how to add the navigation bar to our Angular application. Open app.component.html, place the nav tag, create a Bootstrap navbar by using the navbar and other classes. I am not explaining the Bootstrap related CSS classes in detail. I am assuming you know the Bootstrap already. So we have created a navigation bar. There I am going to create the navbar brand. Project title is Angular Task Manager. Creating a navbar toggler button. And also creating a collapsible container for the navigation. I would like to create two navigation hyperlinks. One is dashboard and other one is about. And also creating the search box in the navigation bar. And also displaying the search icon by using font awesome. Now creating search button. And also placing the actual content of the page inside the container fluid. All these predefined classes such as navbar, navbar toggle, form inline, container fluid, all these classes belongs to Bootstrap. Sometimes while practice time, you will get a blank screen in the browser showing no error message in the browser. At the time, it indicates there is some mistake in the HTML code. In order to identify that problem, right-click on the web page, inspect element, or press the keyboard shortcut F12 and click on console. It is displaying error message saying that unexpected closing span tag. In the span tag, we forgot double quotes. Now the code is correct. Now let us execute the program and see the output. Now the navigation bar looks like this. When you resize the browser, automatically the navigation bar will be shrunk into a single button. When you click on the same, the nav bar will be expanded. As of now, these hyperlinks dashboard and about are dummy. In the further lessons, we are going to create the components and implement the routing. At that time, these hyperlinks will work. This is all about integration of Bootstrap navigation bar in Angular application. Let's understand Angular components in detail. Component is a class that contains application data plus event handler methods. For every screen, you require to create a component. For example, for a dashboard page, you require to create a dashboard component. Component contains application data in the form of properties or arrays that is required to display the view. And also it contains event handler methods in order to respond to user actions. For example, in the My Profile page, I want to display the name of the person. So person name is the property that is available in the component class. And when the user clicks on the Save button, it is going to execute a method called onSaveClick, which is present inside the component class. Every component is associated to a template. In other words, one component has only one template. Template contains design logic, that is HTML logic. Template can access all the properties and event handler methods of the corresponding component. For example, the text box binds to person name property of the component. The button binds to onButtonClick method of the component. A component can call other component through its template. That means in the template of one component, you can call another component. Component's additional details are called metadata of the component. Let's understand component hierarchy. At runtime, component hierarchy will be formed automatically depending on which component calls which other components. When we execute the application by using the URL http localhost 4200, by default, the root component, that is app component, will execute. The app component can invoke one or more other components. Each child component can invoke some other components and so on. Thus, a component hierarchy will be formed up at runtime depending on which component invokes which other component. These components can shade the data towards up or towards down in the component hierarchy. Let's understand the component metadata. First, we have a component. Component class contains properties and methods. Every component is associated to a template. The template contains HTML logic to render the output. In order to specify that this class is a component class, at the above the class, you require to add the decorator, that is @component. In other words, the @component decorator specifies that the following one is a component class, not an ordinary class. Inside the braces, you require to add some additional details about the component, and that additional details are called metadata. The metadata mainly contains template URL and selector. The template URL is the name of the template file to which the component is now associated. For example, the template file name is app.component.html. The component can be invoked by using the tag name. The tag name can be anything, but the selector must be registered in the component metadata. For example, we have specified selector ABC. With ABC tag, the component can be invoked. Every component is associated to a style sheet. It can be CSS or SCSS file. The name of the CSS file can be written in the style URLs. Notice it is an array. That means you can define multiple CSS or multiple SCSS files. Now let us examine the same in app component practically. In our existing application, open app.component.ts. I am deleting the title property, which is optional. So basically you have a app component class. In order to specify that it is a component, just above the class you are adding a decorator called @component. The selector specifies the name of the tag using which the component is being invoked. The same tag is already written in the index.html file. So in this place, it will render the actual result of the app component. That means whatever we have really written in app.component.html file will be substituted automatically in place of app root. The same you can notice practically. So open your browser, right click and click on inspect element or press F12. You can notice the body tag has app root. Inside the app root, our actual content of app.component.html has been loaded. So in this place, app.component.html will be loaded at runtime. And in order to specify that this app component class is binded to app.component.html file, we are specifying the template file name in the template URL property. One component must contain one template compulsory, and one component can contain maximum only one template. And every component contains a style sheet, and in our case it is SCSS file. So the file name of app.component.scss is specified in the style URLs property. Since it is an array, we can give multiple file names. For example, we can give otherfile.scss. Generally, it is enough to have one style sheet for one component. So I am just deleting this back. And the decorator @component must be imported from Angular/core. Not only component decorator, but also many predefined decorators such as ng-module, injectable, etc. are to be imported from @Angular/core package only. This is the basic understanding of components in Angular. Now let us create additional components apart from app component. In Angular application, you can create any number of components as per your requirement. In order to add the components to existing application, open your command prompt window and make sure we are in the correct application directory. In our example, it is C:\Angular Task Manager. The command to create the component class is ng. Ng for Angular, G for generate. And what kind of item you would like to create? A component. Now you require to specify the component name. For example, I am going to create dashboard component. So ngg component dashboard. For every component, it will create a subdirectory in the app folder. For example, dashboard is a subfolder created in the app folder. For every component, 4 files will be created. The actual component class definition exists in component.ts file. The unit test cases of the component are present in the spec.ts file. The actual template is present in the component.html. And the style sheet is present in the component.scss file. And also component declaration has been added to the app.module.ts file. Now open the dashboard folder. There you can find all the specified files. Open the dashboard.component.ts file. There you can notice the selector, that is app-dashboard. That means this dashboard can be invoked by using the tag, that is app-dashboard. And also open the dashboard.component.html. The default content is dashboard works. So in order to invoke this content, you require to use the app dashboard. When we invoke the component class and also the corresponding template both will execute. And the result of the template will be appear where we invoke the component tag. For example, in the app.component.html, I am going to create a div tag inside which we are going to invoke the dashboard component by typing the selected tag. So in this place, the actual template of the component will be substituted. So as you can see, inside the app dashboard tag, the content of dashboard has been loaded. The same appears in the real output. Similarly, let us create one more component. So ngg component, about component. For about component also, the specified 4 files will be repeated. All these files are present inside the about folder. So open the about folder. There open the about.component.ts. You can notice the selector, that is app-about. And also notice about.html. The default content is about works. And you can invoke the about component by using the tag app-about. And this tag name app-about just taken from about component selector. And it is not fixed, we can change it. For example, I am going to make it as just about instead of app-about. So in the app.component.html file, you require to just write about instead of writing app-about. Now let us run the application. Every time when you modify the file, the ngserv command automatically identifies the changes and attempt to recompile the application. And if the compilation is successful, the page will automatically refresh in the browser. Now we can notice that the about component also works. This is the basic understanding of what is component, how to create the components, and how to invoke the components from app component. In the previous lectures, we have created a basic application that contains 2 or 3 components. Now in this lecture, let's understand Angular routing basics in order to create navigation among the components. In this case, you can consider the components as pages because we will load either of components among all. For example, we have 3 components: home component, about component, contact component. If the user clicks on home hyperlink, the home component will be displayed. If the user clicks on about hyperlink, about component will be loaded. if the user clicks on contact hyperlink, contact component will be loaded. We will create a placeholder in the template of app component into which any one component will be loaded dynamically based on the URL entered by the user. What is routing? Angular routing is an integral part of Angular which allows us to load components based on the URL changes in the browser's location bar, so the user experiences the page navigation using single page application technique. Here, single page application is a technique which allows us to navigate among screens only within the client side itself instead of reloading the full page. A route maps an URL to a component. For example, the URL dashboard maps to dashboard component. So whenever the user enters the URL dashboard, it automatically loads the dashboard component. First, we require to download the @angular/router package in package.json file, which provides essential predefined classes that are required to run Angular routing. Fortunately, the same is already imported in package.json file when you create a new Angular application with engine new -- routing option. For example, if you open the package.json file, there you can find the package called @angular/router. Next, you require to define base URL in index.html file, that is as a slash, which represents the current working server URL. For example, if the application is running at www.sample.com, the base URL is equal to www.sample.com automatically. And also, if the application is running at www.sample.com/other URL, the base URL is equal to www.sample.com/other URL. This URL acts as a base which can be prefixed to the actual route URLs. For example, if the base URL is www.sample.com/other URL and the Angular route URL is dashboard, the full URL will be www.sample.com/other URL/dashboard. The user can copy paste this particular URL in any browser to get the appropriate dashboard page. In our existing application, already in the index.html file, you can see the tag called base href in order to represent the server URL as a base URL for Angular routing. And also let me change the title of the page as a task space manager. Next, create hyperlink for each route. When the user clicks on the hyperlink, the URL changes to the specified path, and also the corresponding components will be loaded automatically. We can create the hyperlinks in any component, for example in app component. In the HTML anchor tag, by default we can specify the path by using href attribute. In order to specify the Angular route URL, instead of href, you have to use router link, which means that it is not a regular hyperlink, it is a hyperlink for Angular routing. So based on the Angular routing definitions, it has to execute. Assume we are going to create the hyperlink for the dashboard. So router link is equal to dashboard. And this word router link is case sensitive, where R must be lowercase, L must be uppercase. Similarly, for the second hyperlink, I am going to give router link equal to about. When the user clicks on dashboard hyperlink, it will navigate to dashboard route. When the user clicks on about hyperlink, it will navigate to about route. Next, you require to create the actual router module. I will explain about the modules in detail in further lectures of the course. In Angular, it is recommended to create the routes as a separate module so that it can be imported in desired module, for example in app module. The routes is an type alias, which really means an array of route interface. The route interface defines properties such as path, component, etc. Each route is of route interface type. The path property represents the actual URL based on which the route can be identified. The component property represents the component class, which component should be loaded when the user is navigated to the specified route. Next, you require to create a custom module class called app_routing_module, where you are importing a predefined module called router module and also exporting the router module. In the imports property, you are using for_route function in order to merge the router module and routes. The router module is a predefined module which provides essential predefined functions for execution of routes. And the routes variable is a user-defined variable that is created above, which contains the list of routes as an array. Next, you require to create router outlet tag in app.component.html to represent the place where exactly the component's content needs to be reflected. Generally, you will add the router outlet tag in container fluid of Bootstrap. So in our existing application, instead of calling the dashboard component and about component directly, inside the container fluid, I want to place the actual content of the component, either dashboard component or about component. That means if the user clicks on dashboard hyperlink, in the container fluid, I want to display the dashboard component. If the user clicks on about hyperlink, in the container fluid, I want to display the about component. In order to represent the current working component, which is currently selected by the user, add the router outlet tag in the container fluid. Now we have to add the routes to the router module. At the time of creating the Angular application, in the ng-new command, we have added an option --routing. So because of that, automatically it has created a file called app_routing.module.ts where you can define the routes. In case if you create the application without routing option, then you require to create this file manually. We are going to create a module called app_routing_module for routing. And this module exports a predefined module called router module, which is originally imported from Angular/router module. In addition to exporting the router module, it defines an array called routes, where you will be able to add the actual routes. Once you start typing in routes array, it is displaying the properties. All these properties are coming from route interface. In our application, I want to create two routes. One is for dashboard and other one is for about component. So we require to specify the two properties, that is path and component. The path property specifies the actual URL that you are expecting to see in the browser location bar. For example, in Gmail website, when the user has opened inbox, you want to display inbox at the browser location bar. Similarly, in our existing application, when the user has opened dashboard component, I would like to show dashboard as a URL in the browser location bar. In other words, when the user has given dashboard in the browser location bar, I want to load the dashboard component. So we require to specify the component class name in the component property. And also we require to import the dashboard component from the dashboard/dashboard component. Here, dashboard component is the actual class name that we have already created in the dashboard.component.ts file. And this is the path of the dashboard.component.ts file. The // refers to current folder, which is equivalent to app folder. and inside that we have a subfolder called dashboard, and inside that we have a file called dashboard.component.ts. Here .ts will be taken automatically. Whenever the path starts from / or // you can assume it is a user-defined file. If it is not having / but starts with @Angular, you can assume it is a predefined package. So first we are importing the dashboard component from the specified file and creating a route for the particular component. And also I would like to add another route for about and specify in the about component. In Visual Studio Code, once you select about component in the list and press the tab key, automatically the importing statement will be added above. So overall, in the package.json file we have imported @Angular/router package. In the index.html we have specified the base address. In the app routing module.ts we have defined the routes and also exported the router module. And finally in the app.module.ts we have to import the app routing module like this. The statement of importing the app routing module in the app module is already generated automatically. And also in the app.component.html we have to create the router links and also create in the router outlet. These are the steps to work with the routes. So let's execute the program and see whether it works. Currently the application is running, but no page is displayed, neither dashboard nor about component, any of them not displayed. So if you click on dashboard hyperlink, first the URL changes to /dashboard and internally it will verify the path here. If the path is matching, the corresponding component will be loaded and the corresponding component class is invoking the template dashboard.component.html. Then it will load the content of dashboard.component.html and render the same automatically in the router outlet tag. In that way you can see the output of dashboard inside the container fluid. You can also right click on this content, inspect element, and also you can notice the content of dashboard has been loaded near the router outlet. Similarly, if you click on about, the about component content is loaded near the router outlet tag. So overall dashboard and about both pages are working. At your practice time, you can try creating more number of components and more number of routes as I mentioned. But there is a problem. In case if the URL is localhost 4200 without any suffix, in that case, this particular empty URL is not matching with any one of the path that we have specified here. In order to overcome the problem, at last it is recommended to add one more path with empty string. There you can specify redirect to. Now we can specify the path dashboard component, which means that whenever the URL is empty, automatically redirect to dashboard component. In this place, you can give any other route, for example login or home page or whatever you wish. And also we require to add one more option, that is path match full. In the path match property, we have two options, that is prefix and full. The default is prefix, but the prefix will be useful only in case of child routes. For example, we are creating a child route and you want to take the parent route as a prefix. In that case only we require to specify the path match prefix. As of now we are not creating the child routes, so we can only make use of path match equal to full. Now save this. If you try entering the URL localhost 4200, automatically it will redirect to dashboard. You can try once again. I am just entering the URL localhost 4200. It is automatically redirecting to dashboard. In that way, we have made dashboard as a default page in our application. First, in the browser, index.html is loaded, and inside the index.html, the app component gets loaded automatically, and after loading the app component, it will check the URL, that is /dashboard in this case. Based on the URL, it will go and check the app routing module. Accordingly, it is loading the dashboard component. This is the way how it works. This is all about the basic routing in Angular.